Hello, everyone. NWE War Reports here with the 26th March 2023 frontline update for the Russo-Ukrainian War. We got a lot of updates today. First of which is a big update coming from the town of Bakhmut. Uh, Recent video that has actually been released shows the Wagner troops in the area, this Russian private military contractors, almost in complete control of the AZOM steelworks. So this is actually a very large bit of territory that's being bit off. As you can see here in purple, this is the entire territory of the industrial or the steel zone. Many different factories within this territory, like with various different names and owners. I'm just going to go ahead and delete this. That way we could see exactly where the gains are. I'm going to turn this. We'll change this color to red to mark it as yesterday's gains. And then the most recent drone footage and reports from the area are showing something more or less like an area like this that has been captured by Wagner forces. So, moving into the industrial zone, several of these largest factory buildings. There's actually like news reporters interviewing soldiers within these complexes here. So, this is pretty solid information in terms of the capture of this, and we're not exactly sure of when this happened. Of course, like we're marking it as today, but there's been battles inside this steel plant for the better part of a week, so this is probably more or less a week's worth of gains. On top of that, we do have also gains in this neighborhood here. We talked about it yesterday, how there was allegedly large concentrations of Wagner troops moving into this area. Some of these early streets here, these first streets closest to, I believe this is the railroad track, along with the buildings adjacent to the reservoir here, which actually they look to be some kind of, I don't know, this looks like a palace, maybe some kind of resort or something. Who knows? But we're looking at an area more or less like this that has also fallen into Russian hands. So we'll go ahead and mark that there as well. So pretty big gains to the northern parts of Bakhmut, especially the steel factory is obviously a big deal. It's a big industrial zone. It's a huge obstacle. It would have been one of the most difficult places to capture within the city. So the fact that that is out of the way doesn't bode well for the rest of Bakhmut. Now, some of you guys probably missed it. I posted like a map update video yesterday. Some of these places down to the south that I had marked in basically in white because we weren't sure. I had adjusted those. We're a little more certain of this now. The Russian troops, or this is probably paratroopers to the south here. Not entirely sure. It's either Wagner or paratroopers, but we know that on this southern flank down here, this is in fact paratroopers, a guards paratrooper division. But they have made it right up to the outskirts of the Avangard Stadium once again. Captured the most of this district to the south here, including this small park. A lot of this district with the school, and then they have moved in, capturing big parts of the um, market area. So we're going to go ahead and mark these areas as gains that were made yesterday. So there you have it. That is the most recent map of Bakhmut. Tomorrow we should adjust the lines a little bit more there. All right, so real quick, talking about like the rest of the front line, we're going to move to this live UA map that shows Ukrainian uh, basically Ukrainian MOD reports on where Russia is shelling them, where Russia is launching assault actions. First, we'll look at the assault actions concentrated along essentially the entire Donbass front line, a little bit up towards Kupiansk here as well. Of course, you have, Kremenna Forests, Bilogorovka, Bakhmut, the area of Avdiivka, which we'll dive into a little bit, and then the area of Marinka, which there's actually some big map updates in this area. So this is what we're going to go to more or less immediately. Several sources have reported on this now. A couple weeks or potentially even a couple months ago, it was geolocated that Russian troops had moved up this hedgerow here and had moved into these warehouses. So, essentially they have like a small supply route going up through these trees, and then, they have forward positions in these warehouses. It's now been geolocated and confirmed that the Russians do, in fact, control this northern district of Marinka. So, this is actually a pretty big chunk of land. Most of the sources I've seen have this area marked here, but I think it's silly, just mainly because I highly doubt that Ukraine has forward positions in the middle of these fields, especially with Russian troops so far advanced on each side. It just seems like it'd be impossible um, to get supplies or whatever you needed into this area. Not to mention there's zero cover, and I get it. Like there's probably not Russian troops in this area either, but this area I don't think would be considered under Ukrainian control any longer. So I'm actually going to move the lines up like this and show this as the zone of control that the Russians now have. There's also some reports, including from Rybar, but not from more of the like neutral mapping sources for like Syriac and stuff. But Rybar is saying that the central area of Marinka has now been captured. I'm skeptical of that because they have mentioned that a couple times before. We will go ahead and mark it up to Druzhba Avenue in the white color, typical white color, just to show that we're unsure, but we've heard rumors of a change of position in this area right here. So these are the big updates of Marinka. The whole northern district has now been captured, perhaps in Russian control for some time, and just not geolocated until this last week. This is also confirmed, I believe, by Institute for Study of War. At least somewhat. They've geolocated Russian positions at the warehouses and then partially in this northern district here, and then they mark, of course, the Russian claims. Of course, there's no Russian sources that I've seen that are claiming that this much of Marinka is under Russian control. So sometimes this can be misleading, I think, and it shows like because they're not very quick to update. I think one of the big purposes in doing this is to make it look like the Russians exaggerate their own positions more than they actually do. Like sometimes there's some claims like from less reliable channels that say like all the Russians have captured large pieces of territory, and then those claims are never backed up by like more official sources or anything. But I think this ISW map goes ahead and marks them down and like leaves them permanently. Which when you look at the whole thing gives you the idea that the Russians are full of shit, which they can be sometimes, but sometimes we see drone footage of these things. So just real quick, zooming in on Bakhmut because I haven't looked at this map for you guys in a while. This is what the ISW claims are about Bakhmut as well, which very fascinating. The ISW actually has geolocated and confirmed not in one but in two places where they believe Russian forces managed to cross the Bakhmutovka River. One of which I actually showed you guys in previous video. I think maybe even yesterday's video. But the second one I was skeptical of, but they appear to be more confident in that crossing. All right, now real quick, we're going to move to this live UA map and talk about Avdiivka because there is a lot. This map is very, very different from any of the other maps. This map, which is very, very pro-Ukrainian, is giving the Russians a lot more credit than I think they should in this particular situation. And why they're doing that, I'm not sure. But they've marked a pretty huge salient to the south of Avdiivka here. pushing up on last Tochkny, um, Sieverny, and Tonenki. So, this is, if this were true, it would be a very, very troubling development for the Ukrainians inside Avdiivka, because the main town for supply here is Orlivka, especially with Stepove so close to Russian positions. So let me go ahead and real quick pull a military summary channel here and correct this and mark the territory that has not been confirmed, kind of a bit of an opposite day type thing. So this blue bit of territory here, far too generous. I've not seen any reports of this anywhere. And then this territory to the north, um, pushing up on Kermak. Oh, okay, we're still in it. I'd say probably at least to the railroad junction, if not a little bit more. Um, we'll go ahead and give them a little bit more because I haven't even seen evidence that this railroad junction is occupied. This is also far too generous. So, everything else we've pretty much geo-confirmed, geolocated. And or just basically like so many sources are reporting on it, and there's no evidence that it's incorrect, which is a little bit less reliable than geolocation. But there's been too much ground granted to the Ukrainians here. Just for reference, like looking at my map, this is allegedly where Ukrainian counterattack was. Go ahead, delete that. Move this Russian position here back to the rail line. It's pretty clear the Russians are at the rail line. And then, this is essentially what we're looking at here. This is what we've mapped out in the past. We'll go ahead and make this red. Okay. So, another like kind of biggish update. So one of the reasons why we probably haven't heard anything from Avdiivka over the last couple days, Russian assault troops have been working in the south of Avdiivka, and this isn't necessarily 100% confirmed. Some of it is. It appears like the southern parts of this Pervomaysk area, this town of Pervomaysk, have fallen into Russian control now. So we're looking more or less like an area like this. I guess we'll mark this entire area here. And then there are some claims, and I believe this claim came from Rybar, but I'm not entirely sure because I tried to find it this morning and it was a little further back. But there's also claims that this intersection where Pervomaysk meets this area has also fallen under Russian control. And if that were true, that would be a pretty big deal because that puts the Russians really close to this town of Netalove, and this is essentially like one of the main, potentially a big supply route into the Avdiivka area. Of course, you have these lakes blocking the way here, a series of lakes running through to the west. So supplies theoretically would come down through Karlivka here, through Netalove, and then up to Umansk or Livka, or they would come down from Okshtcherny down to Orlivka and then into Bakhmut. Well, sealing off this entire southern direction would be, one step closer to the encirclement of Avdiivka for the Russians. So we're going to go ahead and mark this as well in the white color because we're really not sure of the status of it. There. All right. So now that we've corrected that, zooming out real quick, let's look at the live UA map and make sure we covered everything. And I believe we did. There is definitely more activity on this Svatova line than we've been reporting. It's just really tough to kind of gauge where it's going on. There's definitely big battles in the area of Makivka. some footage geolocated a Russian tank actually in the town at one point. It might have been like a forward advanced element that made a slight breakthrough or something. I'm not entirely sure, but um, there is activity going on there. All right, guys, I think that's it for me. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter for more mapping and geopolitics updates. Thanks again for joining, and have a great rest of your day.